Hey everyone, Dev with Crime Hive, and in this true crime video, we're talking about notorious serial killer, the Zodiac. And we've just recently learned a new development. If you know this case, you know that there's been this code that has baffled investigators, the FBI, and 51 years later, I'm reading from the New York Times here, we've learned that this coded message that it was attributed to the Zodiac Killer has been solved, the FBI says. So really interesting, and I'm going to just talk a little bit about what this code is, what it may mean for the investigation, and then we're going to briefly talk about the victims in this case, so you guys understand how the Zodiac, was brought about, how he became the Zodiac. This is a very in-depth case, so I will most likely do a series of videos to go more in detail on this case. And if you guys are interested in that, comment below and let me know. Again, Dev with Crime Hive. You can subscribe to this channel and share this with others that you know. Let's talk about this case here. So again, if you're not familiar with the Zodiac, he operated in the late 60s and early 70s. And we know that he has 5 confirmed murders, 7 attempted murders attributed with that. And then also he claims 37 victims. But again, we only know of 5 homicides right now. And he's never been caught. He's never been caught, operated here in this area here around Vallejo, California, Napa area, San Francisco, so the San Francisco Bay Area. And, he would send in these codes. And if you're wondering what this code is, I'll show you exactly the one that was cracked before we get more involved in this here. So this is the code. This was 340 characters. You're looking at a series of numbers and just characters that were scrambled and people could not figure it out. Well, these 3 code breakers, they figured it out. One was from the US, one was from Belgium, one was from Australia, and they used sophisticated software and they figured out what the message said. So I'm going to play this quick clip and then I'll talk about exactly what the message said, and then we'll get into the victims here just so you guys have a better idea, just a quick synopsis of why he's called the Zodiac. So let's get into this first clip here. And you might want to turn up your volume there.
3 code breakers from around the world may have decoded a cipher written by the Zodiac Killer.
This is a big one. We have a solution for the 340, and it's real.
David Orenchak, a code expert, released this YouTube video today. He says the cryptic cipher written by the Zodiac Killer, who has claimed to have taken 37 lives, has been decoded, and it reads,
I hope you are having lots of fun in trying to catch me.
Orenchak says he came up with 650,000 manipulations of the cipher to try to figure out how the Zodiac Killer may have rearranged his message. Then after running it through a decryption software, one caught his eye.
So it looks like the thousands of others. Normally, I'd ignore them, but this one had words like, hope you are trying to catch me, and, or the gas chamber.
KPIX security analyst Jeff Harp oversaw the intelligence analyst working to solve this case with the FBI. He says there's no question how technology has helped to crack the code.
The CIA and FBI had a lot of smart people doing those kind of things back then, but it was time consuming. Now you have computers where you can probably scan a document that has every character on it.
What the cipher may lack is any information to help identify the Zodiac Killer. The FBI released a statement today saying the Zodiac Killer case remains an ongoing investigation for the FBI San Francisco division and our local law enforcement.
Okay, so that gives you a better idea of how that came about with solving that. Now, if you want to watch the full video, you've got one of the code crackers right here, David Orenchak, put together a video showing how they actually solved this, and it's really fascinating. It's almost got 1 million views already. But let me show you what it actually said, what the full message was. Okay, so once it was decoded, and we're looking at the New York Times here again, it read, I hope you're having lots of fun in trying to catch me. That wasn't me on the TV show, which brings up a point about me. I am not afraid of the gas chamber because it will send me to paradise all the sooner because I now have enough slaves to work for me where everyone else has nothing when they reach paradise. So they are afraid of death. I am not afraid because I know that my new life is life. will be an easy one in Paradise Death. And notice how there's the misspelling of Paradise. He was known when he was sending in these letters and information to media and police and taunting them. He was known to misspell words, and so it makes you wonder here. With this new information here, with this new, it may not seem like much, but could this information lead finally to who the Zodiac is? Again, he's never been caught. We're thinking that the most reasonable explanation of how to find out who he was through DNA, and I'll talk about that in just a second here. But let's talk about the victims and how he led to becoming known as the Zodiac. Okay, now I'm looking at the timeline here in the San Francisco Chronicle, and it really begins in December of 1968. You've got this couple here, Betty Lou Jensen, only 16 years old, and David Faraday, 17 years old. And they were the first known victims of the Zodiac. And so just to give you an idea of what happened here, again, I'm not going to go too much in depth because there's a lot of info. I've got access to police records and all sorts of info. We can do a much deeper dive into this case. But what we do know is on December 20th, 1968, at about 11:15 p.m., they were parked in a remote area off Lake Herman Road. This, again, takes place in Vallejo, California. And we learned that it sounds like there were gunshots fired into the vehicle, which then drew David and Betty out of the vehicle. So David gets out. As he's getting out, he was shot, right in the head, and ended up dying within minutes. Now, what we learned from the investigation as well is Betty Lou apparently tries to run off, and she was shot 5 times in the back and was killed. Looks like a .22 caliber pistol was used. No sign of a robbery or sex crime, anything like that, and there were no witnesses. So that's when this really begins. Now, as we continue to go through this timeline here, the next victim, this took place on July 4th, 1969. And you've got 2 more victims, another couple. And you're looking right here. This is Darlene Farron. She was shot and killed. Now, magically, Michael Maggiao he lived. He survived this. So looking at the synopsis on that case here, this took place, July 4th, leading into the early hours of July 5th, 1969. And again, secluded parking lot, this time Blue Rock Springs Park, outskirts of Vallejo. Now, Darlene was shot, only 22 years old. She was shot 5 times. And then Mike, 19, he was shot 4 times. Again, survived. And this time a 9mm pistol was used. Again, no witnesses, no robbery, no indication of a sex crime or anything like that. And then as we continue to learn more about this case and go down the timeline here, we then learn the first cipher, okay, August 2nd, 1969. This was the first confirmed letter by the Zodiac, and that's how we start to learn about these killings. He's very prideful, and his first one was decoded. His first message was easily decoded, and he actually decided to make a much stronger code, and which again took 51 years. Now keep in mind, there's another one out there that has never been solved. It's only 13 characters, and apparently it contains his name. He says his name is, and you have 13 characters. Code breakers feel like it's going to be very difficult to solve that because there's such limited information there, not enough characters to solve it. So, and we don't even know if it's going to be his true identity if they do solve that cipher. So really interesting there. And then we learn September 27th, 1969, new victims. Again, it's still kind of a pattern at this point. You've got couples. Now this time though, it changes from a shooting to stabbing. So right here, you've got Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard. Okay, they were stabbed, and when we look at the quick synopsis on that, it took place about 6:15 p.m. on September 29th, 1969. This time it's by Napa, California, which I pointed out on the map. Again, so this time it's gone from Vallejo to Napa area, and when we're looking at it, wow, Cecilia was stabbed 10 times, 5 times in the front, 5 times in the back. Brian, 6 times in the back. Again, he survived. So somehow he magically survives. They learned that the knife had a wooden handle and a blade that was about 10 to 12 inches long. No witnesses again, no sign of a robbery or sexual crime, nothing like that. And that's really interesting. And the reason I mentioned that, I'll tell you in a minute, because there are some potential suspects, which we'll go deeper into other videos. If you guys are interested in that, just comment below. And if you like this video so far, of course, share it, let others know about it. Let's continue here with a quick synopsis of these victims, though. So you've got this couple here, and then when we continue to go through the timeline, October 11th. This is really the last confirmed victim of the Zodiac that we know about for sure. Keep in mind the Zodiac says that he has 37 victims, and the FBI has not been able to conclude that information. But on October 11th, 1969, you've got this cab driver, Paul Stine. He was shot to death in San Francisco. So still in this area, you know, right in this area. So this time it's in San Francisco. He was killed, and just pulling up his information here, this took place about 9:55 p.m. in San Francisco. He was shot one time in the head, point blank range, by a 9mm semi-automatic pistol. Now, this one was interesting, which again, I'm not going to go too in depth in, but there was a sign of a robbery in this case. Clothing items, wallet, some other items were taken from Paul and later mailed in. Some of these items were later mailed in to these news stations, and it was confirmed, you know, and the Zodiac took credit for this as well. But it was, again, a very different type of crime. He actually stole items in this, and there were witnesses in this case. So from that information, from this particular crime, they were able to gather a sketch of who they think the Zodiac is, or who this person might look like. And that's why you've got this notorious sketch here, if you don't already know, or if you've never seen this. Again, very old case, so a lot of new, younger generation people out there may not even be familiar with it. But that's really how the Zodiac came about. Now, again, there's a lot more to it, with him sending in all these different letters and codes, and you know, and I'll show you just real quick here as you're going down. You've got, you know, bloody clothing items sent in that was confirmed at the Chronicle. You've got, you know, the codes again that he was sending in. Really interesting case. Of course, they've made movies. You know, there's all sorts of books about the Zodiac and information out there for you guys to see. The last thing I want to point out before the end of this video here is there have been possible suspects, and really the most well sought out suspect was this man here, Arthur Allen. A lot of interesting coincidences with him and the timeline that leads up with the Zodiac. It's just a lot of interesting information that we'll talk about in another video. But they still did not have enough information to conclusively say he was responsible and arrest him for those murders. They even conducted search warrants, and they have potential evidence. But what we're really learning, and this is the last thing I'll share in this video before we end it, is, you know, going back to this timeline here, the last thing I'll point out that it mentions at the very end, last thing I'll mention, Ted, the Unabomber, was thought of as a possible suspect, though. But as I get to the end of it here, this part right here with the DNA, this may be our only chance here, you know, to really find out, you know, just like the Golden State Killer. I did a video on that and the technology used to solve that crime. That type of technology is really our only hope at this point of figuring out who the Zodiac is. And it could be a matter of time, but maybe that message that was deciphered may help in another way as well. Let me know your thoughts on this case. Let me know if you'd like me to do a series on this down the road. I do keep a lot of these cases current, but I will, from time to time, cover some of these older cases, and I do want to do some a series on some of these cases like the Zodiac. So let me know your thoughts. Dev with Crime Hive. I'll be back in another video. You all take care. Thanks.